It had to happen. Mr. Majestic couldn't be hanging out in the DC universe for an extended period of time and not meet Superman, right? Well, Supes is back. So let's get it on. The first issue of Majestic opens with our lead floating into a diner in what I'm assuming is Metropolis. The other patrons all flee. As Majestic sits down at the counter, the waitress takes his order. All the breakfast plates. Yes, all of them. And coffee. After a while, Superman walks in. He takes a seat next to Majestic, who suggests he try the coffee. Superman then catches us up on Majestic's actions since the strange new visitor story. He's captured over 100 metahuman criminals and imprisoned them without a trial. He is building something in the atmosphere that has various world governments nervous. And while Superman appreciates Majestic stepping into his shoes and helping Metropolis and the world in his absence, it's clear that the shoes are in ill fit. Majestic is missing that human touch that people have come to expect from someone like Superman. Majestic takes this critique in stride, essentially believing that the heroes of this world are all liberal softies. And the thing that he is building in the atmosphere is a device to get him home. No one needs to be worried about it. Just a few more days' work, he'll be finished and then gone. Superman is glad to hear it. He'll spread the word for everyone not to worry, but, don't take your time either. He leaves. Surrounding the diner is an army of Metropolis PD officers. They are decked out in riot gear. The area is cordoned off, and they are ready to go. Majestic's actions have really spooked the world, and this is the result. Superman holds up his hands. Everything is fine. He just needs some space. Oh, by the way, the Justice League is flabbergasted by this. Clearly, they were expecting a fight. Superman offers Kyle Rayner his Green Lantern ring back. He said you could have this. I love that. Majestic returns to his work in space. We see his inner thoughts vaguely complaining about how soft the DC heroes are. He cannot wait to get back home where people don't futz around a threat and... Wait a minute. He stops. We all remember the Eradicator, the android who tried to replace Superman after he died in the 90s, and then who bothered Majestic during the strange new visitor storyline that we covered, right? He was easily the most antagonistic character in that story. Well, he's back. It seems that Superman might have gotten the world to cut Majestic some slack, but not this guy. Never this guy. The Eradicator slams into Majestic and the pair start fighting. As they do so, Majestic comments on how much he actually appreciates the Eradicator's pragmatic single-mindedness. Just not when it's aimed at him and damaging his way back home. As the fight goes on, Eradicator activates some kind of armored mode. A large black and orange-yellow shell of armor that really brings to mind the Imperiex drones from the Our Worlds at War crossover grows around him. With this armor, Eradicator now poses a real threat. At one point, he is bending and about to break Mr. Majestic's ribs. In response, Mr. Majestic uses his laser vision to cut the armor open just a little bit, just lightly. With the fiber optics inside the suit exposed, Mr. Majestic can now insert his own code, rewiring the Eradicator's programming with his I-beams. The android starts to go wild, and the armor that he's wearing appears to self-destruct. We then cut to Mr. Majestic as he narrates a journey. He found an airless world 9 parsecs from Earth. Even in the vacuum of space, he could smell the stink of daemonite on it. On this world, he found an old science facility. Somehow, the scientists working here found a way to puncture the bleed, the energy field that separates realities. In shorthand, they found a way to move between worlds. Cut to Napier Rise, either a neighborhood or small town on the outskirts of Metropolis. Ellen, a single mother with a young son named Elijah, opens the door to her house. Standing outside of it is a guy who sure looks a lot like Mr. Majestic, but in plain clothes. He carries a briefcase with him. He says that he is here about the room she has to rent. His name is Jim McArrest. That's an anagram for Mr. Majestic. My name is Ben, and this is Comic Book Breakdown, episode 33.5 of Mr. Majestic, Grounded. I'm just going to go ahead and say it. This is my favorite issue in this entire 4-issue miniseries. I love the opening interaction that we get here. There is a perfect setup here for a classic superhero misunderstanding fight. And let's just stop and think about how cool that misunderstanding fight would have been. Superman versus Mr. Majestic. Two superpowers relatively evenly matched. One perhaps a little more devious, Majestic. The other perhaps more skilled against superpowered opponents, Superman. That's a miniseries right there. That's at least 6 issues of just combat, in my opinion. But no. Instead, we get this quiet, kind of perfect scene that not only subverts our expectations as comic book readers, but also does several great storytelling jobs. It's just so efficient. I love it. But first off, it catches us up on what Mr. Majestic has been doing since his last appearance. I won't lie, I hate that all of that stuff happened off panel between that story and this one. You know, I want to see Mr. Majestic fighting DC villains. Like, let's see him confront someone like Lex Luthor, right? All of the powers of Superman, but none of his weaknesses? And with the more pragmatic nature that Lex might appreciate, like, I could see a world where Lex and Mr. Majestic work with each other for some amount of time. Or what about some encounter with, like, a character like Batman or Green Lantern or The Flash? Like, don't get me wrong, the Wildstorm Universe, Mr. Majestic's home universe, has superpowered individuals, but, like, I wouldn't describe them as superheroes like the crew at DC is. DC's heroes are the mold from which most other superheroes are descended, right? Characters like Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, Flash, so on and so on. The Wildstorm cast of characters are relatively human for the most part, honestly. They're very down to earth. They're very, like, fighting in the blood and muck type of characters. Even as Wildstorm has gone on to have, like, second and third and fourth iterations of its characters and its universe, the ones who tend to stick around are the ones who are very human in their general abilities and presentation. You look at characters like Grifter or Zealot, and, like, Zealot's an alien, sure, but she looks like a normal human and she just runs around with swords and body armor. That's it. Like, that does not seem like a superhero, right? So really, the worlds of Wildstorm and DC, for as similar as they can be, also feel like night and day. That's a great contrast, and I want to see those kinds of interactions. I want to see Lex Luthor up to some kind of scheme where it looks like he's going to, like, take over the world or something, and then Mr. Majestic shows up and goes, you know what, your idea's not that bad, but it could use some tweaking in order to make it less evil or something along those lines. And maybe they team up and, like, Luthor has to stop Mr. Majestic, or Majestic still just stops Luthor, right? Like, tucking those kinds of interactions away off panel is really frustrating from a comic book buyer's perspective. However, I also get it, right? We aren't going to be getting a series where Mr. Majestic tours the DC universe. We never did. This comic book is at this point 20 years old. We didn't get one. We're not going to get one. We have to be okay with that. I have to be okay with that, really. And that said, I do appreciate the explanation of what Majestic's been doing between stories, and I like the setup otherwise. Secondly, this scene perfectly captures and demonstrates the differences between these two men. Mr. Majestic floats into the diner. Superman walks. Mr. Majestic captures people extrajudicially. Superman turns them into law enforcement. Mr. Majestic doesn't care if he scares world leaders. Superman negotiates. Supes, at the end of the day, is right. Majestic does lack that down-to-earth, considerate kindness that Superman just is, thanks to his upbringing in Kansas. And of course Mr. Majestic is lacking those skills. He is an alien warlord who is thousands of years old, who has fought in a war for centuries, if not also thousands of years, and he's been stuck on an alien planet where the local populace has, relative to him, the intelligence of a 6-year-old. Now he's been dropped into a different reality to the left and expected to play by their soft as baby bottom rules? Like, I get it. I'm annoyed just thinking about it. The reveal at the end of the police and the Justice League prepared to throw down further demonstrates how unsettling Mr. Majestic's presence is in the DC universe. Notice that Mr. Majestic didn't do anything wrong here. He didn't break any laws, he didn't bash in the door, he didn't threaten the other patron, he didn't fight Superman. He just showed up at a diner for breakfast and a conversation, and the police are ready to unleash hell on him. This further enforces the idea that the authors just set up, that Mr. Majestic is dangerous, feared and hated by a world that doesn't understand him. It goes to show us the scope of how dangerous he is being viewed by other people without spending a lot of time on him. That creative team, by the way, is Dan Abnett and Andy Lanning, who actually wrote the Strange New Visitor story, and who will continue to write Majestic's adventures going forward. Artist Karl Kershcl, who is also back on penciling duty, alongside the coloring team, who I apparently did not make a note of. I have a note in my script to make a note of who they are. I'm very sorry, I have limited time. Thanks to the baby, I'm just going to keep rolling. Now, the scene with Eradicator is a bit weird for me. Last we saw him, the Eradicator was definitely going to keep an eye on Mr. Majestic, but he wasn't outright hostile to him. His attack here comes for no reason, with no explanation, and we don't even get one as the book continues. Like in the rest of the 4 issues, there is never a moment where the Eradicator's like, I was flying into space to have this conversation with Mr. Majestic. Nothing. The Eradicator just had enough of Mr. Majestic existing, I guess, so I do think that's a bit of weak storytelling. Him manifesting what looks like Imperiex armor is interesting, but again, we get no explanation for it here. I had, at the time that I wrote this script several months ago, I was researching the Eradicator more to try and put together his story as far as like, okay, you need to read these Superman comics to understand what's going on here, so that way I could just experience it for myself, right? This is one of the things that I love about comic books, is finding a character or a concept that gets its hooks in me, and then I just kind of like bounce through a bunch of comic books to figure out how that works. However, I was not able to put together a very good or comprehensive reading list, so if there's any advice out there, folks, I would really appreciate it. I do think that I put together a reading list, but it didn't seem like it was really going to, like, answer the questions that I have with the character, and so I do not know what I did with that note. So yeah, any advice would be appreciated. I'm fascinated, I just don't know where to go for it. Anyways, it almost feels like it almost feels like the authors needed a reason to break up the fight in a dramatic way that sets up the end of the first issue story. Like, they can't have the Eradicator explode, like just have him blow up, because he's got a role to play going forward. So they have his armor blow up instead, which rattles Mr. Majestic's mind and sets him up for this down-to-earth, I'm just a dude status quo. And if that is the case, I don't understand why they just wouldn't have, like, Majestic's device blow up. Like, his reality transverser. Like, that would have not only rattled his brain, but it would have kept him trapped here, allowing the rest of the story to happen. The flashback that we get, where Majestic recants his journey of how he got here, I kind of low-key hate. I will straight up say it. It is incredibly, terribly set up. We get no indication that it is a flashback, save for Mr. Majestic's narration, and even then, I didn't pick up on the fact that it was a flashback until we got towards the end of it and, like, the pieces snapped together. I do have to bring up, because this is something I didn't even notice this until I was putting together the artwork for these episodes months, like, I don't even remember when I wrote these 2 episodes. It has literally been months since I initially wrote them, and I've just had no free time to do the recording and putting them together. When I was collecting the artwork for these episodes, I noticed that the flashback sequence that we get is actually red tinted. All of the gutters, and the gutters, for those who aren't familiar, is the blank space on a comic page between the individual panels. All of the flashback pages are done in a red color, which on the one hand is very important to Majestros. He wears red and white. It's the warrior color. I would argue There's a degree, at least here in America, where we think of red as a very royal color, which I think helps establish that idea that Mr. Majestic's royalty, where he comes from. But I never even noticed that. So there is potentially an indicator here that this is a flashback sequence, and I believe, upon further inspection, all of the flashback sequences to Majestic's past are done with that red color. But again, some kind of indication of like, back in the Wildstorm Universe, before Majestic came to the DC Universe, and then his narration starts, or something along those lines. That, or I'm just really dumb. I don't think I'm really dumb, but maybe I am. I thought that the explosion from the Eradicator's armor just pushed Mr. Majestic out into space initially, and was then very confused about the rest of the story. Like, we don't get an artwork change in the flashback. There's no really narration box that is like, back before I got shot to the DC Universe, I was traveling in Wildstorm outer space to, like, set the scene up. It also, it doesn't help because it doesn't jive with the last time we saw Majestic in the Wildstorm Universe at all as a god. Plus, it shows Mr. Majestic growing a beard during his stay at the lab, but then he had no beard when he appeared in the DC Universe. It's just so jarring of a scene change, and then there is no setup for it. Like, why is this where Mr. Majestic's mind goes when he's caught in that explosion? Why is this a thing that we explore here at this moment in time? Why not have Mr. Majestic reflecting on this flashback while he was working on his own portal, right? Like, he's thinking about going home, which gets him thinking about how he got here, and then the Eradicator could show up, maybe wanting to intimidate or talk or threaten, and so, like, you know, he grabs Majestic by the arm or the shoulder, and he's like, hey, I want to talk to you, but because Majestic's lost in thought, and he's reacting without thinking, he, like, swings at him. And then that starts the fight sequence, which then escalates into Eradicator putting that armor on. Then the armor explodes, and Majestic gets amnesia. Then he shows up at Ellen's house. Then he's a normal dude. Like, that just would have made so much more sense 20 years ago. Before we move on from this comic, I do want to shout out the cover of it. Drawn once again by Ed McGuinness. I miss you on Majestic, McG. The cover of this issue is actually an homage to 1939's Superman issue 1. Given that the covers for Strange New Visitor were all echoes and homages to Superman, I love that. That's super cute. I love that kind of thing. Way to stick with the theme. Now, given how much I have talked about issue 1, you would think that issue 2 is going to have just as much stuff going on, right? Well, it doesn't. Issue 2 is essentially broken into 2 stories. The first is a series of flashbacks, a la the one that we got in issue 1, but much further back in Mr. Majestic's life. These flashbacks center on Majestro's life before he even left his homeworld of Kira. I'll talk more about these in detail later, but suffice to say it adds a little action-y spice into the domestic life that Jim Micarest has found himself in. That is the second half of the story. We see Jim settling into his new life alongside his landlady Ellen and her son Elijah, shortened to Eli. Ellen's husband was a firefighter, and he died in the line of duty. Ellen is now working a full-time job and going to night school for nursing. As such, Jim has been asked to help walk Eli to and from school, as well as to and from his baseball games. Jim, in the meantime, works as the groundskeeper of Eli's school, and Eli suspects that something is up. We do see him chat with his friends about his theory that Mr. Micarest is Superman. And they laugh this off, but he is sure that something is up with him. Maybe he isn't Superman, but he is somebody. And you know, give the kid a prize because he's right. Jim being Superman really isn't that far off from the truth. Anyways, we see Jim scare off the baseball team's coach after witnessing him being an a-hole. The coach is verbally abusive to, like, a 9-year-old kid, and Jim basically just tells him to stop, quit, and get out of town. The coach then retorts by hitting him in the head with a baseball bat, which, like, the fact that that's your go-to reaction is really disturbing to begin with, but it barely staggers Jim because he's got superpowers. And then Jim sets it on fire with his laser eyes, which I love it. Jim does not know this at the time, but Eli was watching the whole exchange through a window, confirming that Mr. Micarest is somebody. When they arrive back home, Jim offers to play catch for a minute. Eli seems thrilled by this and runs upstairs to get his stuff. But as he does, he also ducks into Jim's room. Eli pulls Jim's briefcase out from under the bed, and he opens it. Inside it is Mr. Majestic's suit. This issue, issue 2, is basically like a whole nother issue 1. We have a whole new status quo for Majestic. We have no follow-up on the explosive ending of our last issue. We barely touched on the Eradicator, whose systems basically recover from the upgrade that Mr. Majestic installed. That's it. He seems to have a vision of Jim and then starts to hunt him down. We do get a scene of something. Visit the diner that Mr. Majestic and Superman ate at in the first issue. The waitress who served them both actually steps out back for a minute to smoke a cigarette, and she appears to be, at the very least, killed. Maybe she's eaten. We aren't really shown her fate. She just screams, and then blood splashes on the killer before we cut away. Otherwise, this comic is just a guy named Jim who appears to be Mr. Majestic living a normal life. Obviously, this mystery is what authors Abnett and Lanning are hoping keeps us coming back. Is Majestic playing it being a human, having taken Superman's words to heart? Did the explosion give him amnesia? Is he undercover for some reason? These are all good questions, and they can only be answered by buying more comics, baby. Don't you want to buy more comics? Unfortunately, they don't for me. While yes, stuff happens in this comic, the pacing here is absolutely glacial. A whole issue dedicated to setting up suburban life for Majestic? He scares a mean baseball coach? He's got a job? I'm sorry, but I just don't care. I get it, the authors are, I don't want to say fixing because that implies there's something wrong with Majestic's character. Let's say they're recalibrating Mr. Majestic into a more human, more heroic character. He is experiencing life as a normal human, for the most part. He's making human connections. He's coming to care for people on this ground level area, right? Wildstorm Mr. Majestic made it a point not to mingle with humanity. If I remember his first appearance in Wildcats issue 11 correctly, I believe Majestic is living in a cabin on the Alaskan tundra by himself, actively trying not to participate in human society. Again, he has the idea of, I am an advanced alien being from another planet. I should not be tainting or ruining this other planet, this other species, with my genes, with my ideas, with my concepts, and I don't want their filth on me either. There is a little bit of alien racism to the original Mr. Majestic that just kind of gets washed away the longer the character has existed, and especially is being put aside here. And while, yes, you could make an argument in the Mr. Majestic ongoing series that Majestic was interacting with human society, because he certainly was, there was also a distance between Majestic and normal people. All of his concerns were way above, oh, did I hurt this human being's feelings? Demonstrated by the fact that while, he was arranging the solar system's guts to save us from, Wildstorm Galactus, right? He missed the Vietnam War conflict. He could have made a difference. He could have flown to Vietnam, stopped the whole thing, and then continued moving the solar system around, but he chose not to, because his concern isn't the day-to-day problems and experiences of human beings, it's keeping the Earth alive so we can keep doing that kind of stuff. Now, the flashbacks that we got during this issue are fairly interesting. In this particular issue, they are focused around Majesto's life back on his homeworld of Kara, and we see him fighting some Daemonites. We see him meet Elan, his love interest, and those scenes are particularly sweet and cute. We also get a bunch of Wildstorm Easter eggs, so if you were a fan of the Wildcats, that's awesome, and it's fun to see Majestos' history tie into the Wildcats' history that we only really get to see explored a little bit in that actual comic. We also meet Javan, a member of the Shapers Guild, that we meet here for the first time. He is part of a race or group of people with the ability to manipulate metal-like liquid. I've always assumed that the metal was a part of them, but thinking about it, I actually don't recall that ever being explained. In the Wildcats, there's a character, I've read too much Cyberforce recently. I want to call him Ripclaw, but he's not. Warblade. There's a character called Warblade who has like super sharp, stretchy metal fingers. He is a descendant of the Shapers Guild. He is a human-alien hybrid. But I don't know if that's a thing that's put inside them and they can just control it because they're... I don't remember. Huh. Anyways, the fact that he shows up here is neat because Javan will go on to play a major role in the upcoming Majestic ongoing series, which I'm not honestly sure if I'm going to cover. When I originally read that ongoing series, I did not remember Javan showing up back here at all, so that was actually a really nice surprise for me and kind of a cool way to reward, I would argue, long-term readers of Abnett and Landing's run. I love that kind of thing. So, I do want to say that as much as I am complaining here, I don't think this was a bad comic. It's just such an odd fit for Mr. Majestic. It's slow. It is far more driven by drama than concept, which in the history of Mr. Majestic is really weird. It feels so disconnected from our first issue as well. And the previous issue was just so good that this one just feels like an overall step down in quality. It's all set up and then it ends on a fairly obvious cliffhanger. So let's see where it goes. It's only a 2-issue miniseries. I'm going to finish this. Next time, the truth about why Majestic is hiding out as Jim is revealed. A deadly threat also makes itself known, the Eradicator returns, and Majestic does have a chance to go home. But will he? Join me in some amount of time for episode 33.6 of Comic Book Breakdown, The Warrior's Choice. If you enjoyed this episode of Breakdown, please make sure to hit that like button, and if you are not subscribed to the show, then click on that as well. I love getting feedback, and I would really appreciate it if you did so. If you have any questions, concerns, or would like to suggest a comic or a series to me, Breakdown can be found on Facebook, Instagram, and on a variety of podcast platforms, with links in the description for this episode below, as well as the email cbbreakdown@gmail.com. Thank you for your time and attention.